The day I decided to fake my own death was the day I finally understood who I really was to the people I loved most. I know that sounds dramatic. I know it sounds unhinged, but when you've spent 34 years of your life giving everything to everyone around you, your time, your money, your energy, your whole identity, and you still feel completely invisible, you start doing desperate things just to find out if any of it even mattered. My name is Claire, and this is the story of the worst thing I ever did and the most important thing I ever discovered. It started with a birthday, my 34th birthday to be specific. I had been planning it for weeks. Nothing crazy, just a small dinner. My husband Daniel, my best friend of 12 years Mara, my sister Jen, a few close friends. I cooked for 3 hours. I bought wine. I even made a playlist. By 8 o'clock that night, I was sitting alone at a table set for 8 people, eating cold pasta, staring at my phone. Daniel texted at 7:45. "Babe, so sorry, work thing ran late, gonna be another hour." He never showed. Mara sent a voice note. "Oh my God, Claire, I completely forgot. I'm so sorry. Can we do brunch this weekend?" She didn't sound sorry. She sounded like she was already at someone else's party. I could hear music in the background. Jen didn't even text. I sat there for 2 hours, and I didn't cry. I just felt this strange, cold, quiet feeling settle into my chest, like something had finally stopped pretending, and I started thinking. I started thinking about every time I had dropped everything for these people. When Daniel's father got sick 2 years ago, I took 3 weeks off work, drove 4 hours every weekend, cooked, cleaned, managed his medications, held Daniel's hand through every breakdown. When it was over, Daniel told his friends he had handled everything himself. When Mara went through her divorce, I was her therapist, her moving crew, her emergency contact, her 3 a.m. phone call every single night for 6 months. When she started dating again and her new boyfriend asked how she got through it, she said, "I just stayed strong." When Jen lost her job, I lent her $4,000. I never asked for it back. She never offered. I had built my entire life around being the person people could count on. And somewhere along the way, I had become completely invisible. I wasn't a person to them. I was a utility. And that night, sitting alone at my own birthday dinner, I asked myself a question I had never asked before. If I disappeared tomorrow, would any of them even notice? I didn't plan it all at once. The idea crept in slowly, the way the worst ideas always do. I was scrolling online a few weeks later, and I read about this woman who had faked a terminal illness to test her family, and most people in the comments were horrified. But I remember reading it and thinking, I understand exactly why she did that, because the cruelest thing about feeling invisible is that you can never prove it. Not to yourself, not to anyone. People will always say, "Of course I love you, of course I care." Words are free. Words cost nothing. But a funeral? A funeral is a reckoning. A funeral strips away every excuse. You can't be too busy for a funeral. You can't forget. You can't send a voice note saying, "Can we reschedule?" It is the one moment in a person's life where everyone around them is forced to show exactly how much that person meant to them. So I decided I was going to plan my own. I want to stop here for 1 second. If this story is hitting close to home, if you've ever felt invisible in your own life, stay with me. Because what happened next changed everything. And if you haven't already, please subscribe and hit the bell. I share stories like this every week, and I don't want you to miss what's coming. I started small. I told Daniel I was going to visit a college friend for a long weekend. I arranged to stay at a small Airbnb 2 hours away. And then, through a very old email account that nobody knew about, I sent a message to my sister. The message said I had been in a serious car accident, that I was in critical condition, that the doctors were not optimistic. I told her not to call my phone, that it had been destroyed in the crash. I gave her a number that went to a prepaid phone I had bought with cash, and then I sat in that little Airbnb room, completely alone, and I waited. The first call came 4 hours later. It was Jen. She was crying, genuinely crying, and my heart cracked open a little. She said, "I don't know what to do. I don't know who to call. I don't know if she's going to make it." And I almost stopped everything right then. I almost called her back and said it was a mistake. I almost let the guilt win. But then I heard something in the background. A voice, a man's voice, laughing at something on TV. And I realized she was home. She hadn't gone anywhere. She hadn't gotten in her car. She was sitting at home, crying on the phone to someone else, while I was supposedly dying 2 hours away. I kept listening. She talked for about 7 minutes, and then I heard her say, "Okay, I'll keep you updated. I'm gonna go make dinner." And she hung up. I stared at the phone for a long time after that. Mara found out through Jen. She texted the number I had given, not called, texted, and said, "Oh my God, Claire, please be okay. I'm literally shaking." I watched the message come in. I watched the typing bubble appear and disappear 3 more times. And then nothing. She didn't call the hospital I had mentioned. She didn't get in her car. She sent 3 more texts over the next 2 days, each one a little shorter than the last. And then she went quiet. On the 3rd day, she posted a photo on Instagram. Brunch with friends, flower arrangement in the background, big smiles. Caption said, "Sunday reset." I was supposedly in a coma. Daniel was different. And I want to be careful here because this part is the hardest to talk about. When Jen called Daniel, he went quiet for a long time. And then he said, Okay, I'm going." And he got in the car. He drove to the hospital I had named. He talked to the front desk. He called the number I had given, my prepaid phone, twice, 3 times, then left a voicemail. His voice in that voicemail was something I had not heard in years. Raw, scared, real. He said, "Claire, please, if you can hear this, I need you to know I'm here. I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere." I sat on the floor of that Airbnb and I pressed the phone against my chest and I cried for the first time since my birthday. Not because I was happy, but because I realized the person I had most wanted to reach, the person I had most convinced myself didn't care, was the only one who actually showed up. And I had done something unforgivable to get there. I came clean on the 5th day. I called Daniel first. I told him everything. The birthday, the loneliness, the plan, the prepaid phone, all of it. I expected anger. I expected him to hang up. He didn't say anything for almost a full minute. And then he said, "Come home." That was it. Come home. The conversation with Mara was different. When I told her what I had done, there was this long silence. And then she said, "I can't believe you would do something like that. That's so manipulative. I'm honestly hurt that you don't trust me." She made it about herself. She made my fake death about how bad it made her feel. And I realized that was the truest thing I had learned. Not what people do in a crisis, but what they do when they're confronted with their own absence. Whether they look inward and ask themselves why they weren't there, or whether they immediately look outward and make you the villain for noticing. Mara and I haven't spoken since. Jen called me 3 weeks later, like nothing had happened. She asked if I wanted to grab coffee. I said yes, and over coffee, I told her I needed the $4,000 back. She looked at me like I had just spoken in a different language. I told her I wasn't asking. I got half of it back. I'm still working on the rest. Daniel and I went to couples therapy. For 6 months, it was uncomfortable and honest and sometimes brutal. But we're still here, and for the first time in years, I feel like he actually sees me. Not as a function, not as the person who holds everything together. As a person. He told me recently that the 5 days I was gone were the worst 5 days of his life, and I believe him. Because I heard it in his voice when he left that voicemail. That desperate, unguarded, terrified voice that people only use when they think no one is performing anymore. That voice was the whole point. I'm not telling you to do what I did. I'm genuinely not. It caused real damage. It cost me a friendship. It put my husband through something he didn't deserve, and I still carry the weight of that. But I am telling you this. If you have been pouring yourself into people and feeling like you're disappearing, your feelings are not paranoia. They are information. You don't need to fake your own funeral to find out who loves you, but you do need to stop being endlessly available and see who follows you into the quiet. The people who show up when it costs them something. Those are your people. Everyone else is just comfortable. If this story stayed with you, please like this video. It genuinely helps more people find it. And subscribe if you want to hear more stories like this one every week. I'll see you in the next one.